thank you all for coming. So welcome to Support for Dreamers and Undocu students. My name is Katrina Gilmore. I'm the director at the Center for Career Education and Community Engagement. I am pleased to introduce Mariela Gomez, the coordinator of the Dreamers Resource Center and Multicultural Alliance and Gender Equity Gap Center, also known as MAGEC, at CSUB. Thank you for joining us today, Mariela.
Thank you so much, Katrina, for the introductions. I will go ahead and start sharing my screen now. I have just a few slides to share with you. I know that I'm a visual person too, so I like to see content, on the screen. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so just a brief overview of what you can expect today. We'll go ahead and start off with brief introductions. We'll go into what is the Dreamers Resource Center. We'll also be discussing our legal immigration services, diving deep into what is an AB 540 status if you're not familiar with it, the California Dream Act, a short DACA update, other ways to pay for grad school, and last but not least, our contact information. After today's conversation, if you still have some very specific questions, you can always set up a meeting with me, either through email, over the phone, and Zoom, and that way you can get more information. And then hopefully we'll have some time for a Q&A session. Now on to brief introduction. So a little bit more about the Dreamers Resource Center. We had the grand opening in December of 2019, so we're still relatively new. So if you haven't heard about us on campus, that's okay. We're approaching the 3-year anniversary, so something we're really excited about. So what is the purpose of the Dreamers Resource Center? We aim to provide support and resources for students who might be undocumented, AB 540 recipients, maybe they're documented, or they come from a mixed status family, like the one that I come from. More about the DRC services, we offer support filling out applications, anything having to do with residency, if you're looking at scholarships, fellowships, or any type of university document. We're also in the process of revamping our computer lab and study spaces. So these will be open to any student in between your courses, or if you just have any gaps in your schedule, you can come by and reserve these rooms. Something that I'm really proud of are the free legal immigration services. They're offered twice a month. And in the next slide, I'll go more over into what those services entail. We also offer faculty and staff training, class presentations, and we try to partner with different campus departments to host academic and cultural events. More about the legal immigration services. So again, these are free and they're available twice a month. We partner with Immigrant Legal Defense. They're also known as ILD, and they're the ones that provide the attorney and the services. So who's eligible for these? Essentially any students, faculty, staff, plus your immediate family members. So if you have a spouse, parents, your siblings, your children, they're all eligible to access these resources. And even 2 years after you leave the university, you can come back and continue to schedule these appointments. And these are just some of the topics that they're able to assist you with. This is not an expensive list, but I just wanted to give you an idea of the type of aid that they offer. So if you're looking into DACA, applying for advanced parole to temporarily leave the country, if you're dealing with removal defense, seeking asylum, maybe a special visa like the U visa, the T visa. I mean, there's so many topics that they can help with. So again, as we're wrapping up the conversation, I'll make sure that you have my contact information, just in case you want to access these types of services, or maybe you want to share it with a family member, a colleague, a friend. And now more into what is Assembly Bill AB 540. So essentially, just to break it down, it's known as a California law, and it's also known as non-resident tuition exemption. So this essentially grants students who meet certain criteria the ability to pay for in-state tuition. So the way the university classifies you, regardless of your immigration background or your residency status, for tuition purposes, you're eligible to pay the tuition that a traditional student pays. That way you're not charged with like an international fee. I know in the past there was a student who didn't complete their AB 540 form and they were being charged 3 times the normal tuition. And so we don't want that to happen to you. So if you're not sure if you filled this out, just go ahead and get in contact with me and I can connect you to someone from financial aid. So once you fill out the AB 540 form and you meet the certain criteria, you're eligible to apply for the California Dream Act application, which some folks refer to as CATA. And to access this AB 540 form, you can visit the CSUB admissions page. If you need some help accessing the link, just go ahead and get in contact. And now the California Dream Act application, which is also known as CATA. Essentially, this is a law that allows students to apply for state financial aid. So once you complete your AB 540 application, you complete your CATA, then you may also be eligible for certain types of scholarship and aid. And to complete CATA, you can just visit the CSAC page. However, what does CATA not do? These are some common misconceptions. Just because you qualify for CATA, that does not mean this changes your residency status. This does not include eligibility for federal grants, and this should not be confused with the California Dream Act or DACA. These are all separate things. And to break it down a step even further, I know, again, I'm more of a visual person, so think about it at different levels. So you start with your AB 540 form, you move on to CATA, and once you fulfill these two things, then you're eligible to reach the top. So you're eligible to look into things such as the California Dream Loan, state financial aid, or other types of scholarships that the institution, in this case CSUB, is administering. So let's just say that during your undergraduate career, you did these two things, and now you used up your CATA. Based on my current knowledge, CATA, you're usually able to access this type of aid for only 4 years. So if you use it throughout your entire undergraduate studies, then for graduate school, it might be a little bit, tougher to pay for the program. So another option could be the California Dream Loan. So what is it? It's essentially borrowed money that you must repay with interest, and the interest is set at the level that the current federal government sets it as. So whatever the current federal interest rate is, that's what you would be paying with the California Dream Loan. So what are the requirements? You could be an undergraduate student, you could be looking into a credential program, or master's student. You should also have already completed your AB 540 affidavit, and then the California Dream Act application. And one of the biggest benefits of this is that for the most part, the interest begins accruing 6 months after you're done with your program or when deferment ends. So deferment is something that you can apply for if, let's say, you're unemployed still, or you're experiencing some sort of economic hardship and you're not ready to start paying back your loan. You could apply for deferment, and if you qualify, then your loan doesn't kick in right away. You may have some time. So yeah, this is just more about the California Dream Loan. And now onto DACA. I know that there has been lots of news revolving DACA, the final rule, so I'm going to break it down very briefly for you. So essentially, there's going to be a final rule that will be effective October 31st of this year. Now, what does this mean? For the most part, all of the DACA requirements will remain the same, and these are just a few that I listed. For example, you must continuously have resided in the U.S. from the year 2007 to present. You must have been physically present in the U.S. on June 15 when an announcement was made, and you must comply with all of the education requirements. Now, there is a slight difference, just in case you hear this type of information floating around. So individuals applying for DACA will have to apply for the work permit and the deferred action altogether. And this is the way that they're breaking down the cost. So the work permit will be $410, the deferred action will be $85, but the cost is still the same, $495. So some people might say, oh, the work permit went up, all of this happened, but overall the cost that you're paying is still $495, and it's the same thing that it's been. A little bit more of a slight difference that they're including into this final rule is, let's say you currently have DACA, and the department wants to terminate your DACA, they may notify you before. That way you have an idea what's happening and you're able to maybe file an appeal. And of course, the information of DACA recipients will continue to be protected. So does the final rule for DACA change today? The answer is no. So current DACA recipients can continue renewing. and previously issued DACAs continue to be valid until their expiration date. The Department of DHS acknowledges that there was an injunction from the Texas Federal Court, and because of this injunction, a judge ruled that DACA initials, which are DACA new applications, they still cannot be processed at this current moment. So if you never applied for DACA and you're thinking about applying now, you could possibly apply, but the department will just have your application on hold and they will not process it. So will DACA initials be processed starting 10/31, which is when the new rule comes into effect? The answer is a no. It will really depend on the resolution of the current DACA lawsuit. Like I mentioned, that Texas federal court case is really challenging the legality of DACA itself. So it just depends what comes from that lawsuit. And even after the final rule kicks in, there's a possibility of other lawsuits emerging. So there may be a possibility of other lawsuits coming out against the rule, or the uncertainty of DACA initials. And like I mentioned, DACA initials just refers to new DACA applications. So hopefully this makes sense. I try to break it down as simply as I could. Of course, with these legalities, things can get a little bit complicated. So if you ever want to chat, do not be afraid to get in contact with me. And now for just some tools that you can think about as you are applying for grad school, there are so many ways to help make your educational journey just a little bit more accessible and a little bit more affordable. So the first one that I always like to promote are fellowships that you can find on the CSUB Handshake portal. So one of the cool features about the portal, and I'm glad that Katrina, our CC rep, is here in this presentation, is that there are different filters that you can use to filter internships or jobs. And in some cases, some of these employers will not require work authorization or a social security number. And so that can possibly help you filter throughout these types of opportunities. Also, our center, the Dreamers Resource Center, we try to keep an eye out for these types of opportunities. And we're specifically looking at organizations or employers who do not require work authorization. Now, I know that the majority of employers at this current moment, they are looking for that type of information, but there are a few who do not always require it right away. Another thing you can look into are scholarships by referring to Immigrants Rising. So Immigrants Rising recently updated their portal. So again, they have filters that you can use to look at different scholarships and see which ones are available either in your area or with your major. Another thing to look at are school loans. I know I went over the Dream Loan, and this is something that financial aid can assist you with. That way you can look at your options. Another potential idea is maybe looking into freelancing or entrepreneurship. So outside of your courses, if you have a special skill that you want to utilize like on the weekends, that could be something that you're looking into. I know of a student who was in a grad program and they were having some trouble looking for, a stable job because they were a student. So what they did is on the weekends, they started using their social media expertise. So they started doing some consulting for small businesses, specifically in the area of social media. And that's how they were able to make some extra cash to help them get through grad school. And then the other possibility, which I know sometimes we forget about, is even fundraising. So fundraising with friends or family. Again, if you have any special skills that they might find helpful, this could be another way for them to help you fund your graduate journey. And these are just a few ideas that I came up with. But if there's anything else, I'd love to hear them at the end of the presentation. But what I want to remind you is that don't be afraid to fund your graduate program using different avenues. I know that typically whenever it comes to undocumented students or dreamer students, they have obstacles that may be even larger than a traditional student has. But I don't want to let that stop you from applying to a grad program or maybe a grad program of your dreams. There's so many things that you can do to achieve that. And then here is my contact information. So again, if you just have specific questions and you want to get in touch with me, please take a screenshot. Here's my personal email. We also have our Dreamers Resource Center website. I offer meetings in person, Zoom, or via phone. And then this is our social media. So you can stay up to date on what the center is involved with.